Good morning. This is Dr. Stephen Aldana. I'm the CEO of WellSteps. I want to welcome you to today's webinar, Proven Ways to Improve Workplace Environment and Policy. We'll have Dr. Troy Adams joining us real shortly. I just wanted to announce that after every webinar, we invite you to tell us different topics that you'd like to hear about, concerns and challenges that you're facing. We've been keeping these for years, and this topic has come back multiple times as a topic of particular interest to you. So we've been listening to what you've been saying, and eventually some of these topics trickle up to the top, but this is a pretty important topic. Michael O'Donnell with the American Journal of Health Promotions, he's got some good evidence that says this is the most important thing we can do to help employees be healthy. So with us today, Dr. Troy Adams, as I mentioned, will be taking your questions. There's a control panel on the right hand of your screen. All of your phones and mics have been muted, so you can't speak, but you can pose a question or a comment at any time by just clicking on the questions button on the right-hand side of your screen. I and Ryan Isaacson, our Director of Operations, will be triaging and looking at your questions, helping with that. All of the slides and all of the resources that Troy will be mentioning today have already been posted at wellsteps.com on the webinar's link. Everybody wants the slides, so they're already up today, wellsteps.com webinars, and you'll see them posted. Troy Adams got his PhD from the University of Texas at Austin. He's the Chief Operating Officer at WellSteps. He has a wealth of knowledge and information about wellness programs, about population health management. And nobody spends more time studying, evaluating, and creating solutions to employee health than Troy Adams. So I'm honored that he's my partner. I'm honored that we have a few minutes to listen to him today. I know how much time and effort he puts into creating these webinars, and I think we're all in for a nice surprise. Troy, turn it over to you.
Thanks a lot, Steve. I appreciate your introduction, and I'm very, very grateful that all of you have chosen to take a little bit of time in your day on Thursday to join us. I know this is a really busy month. I want to give a special shout out to Ryan Isaacson, who's our Director of Operations. He's on the back end. He'll be answering questions today about audio and where to get the slides and things like that. Thank you, Ryan, for everything you do at WellSteps to make it a better place and for your help to me. So I want to wish all of you in December a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Festivus for the rest of us. If I've forgotten a holiday, I'm sorry. Please let me know. This is my favorite time of the year because mainly I live in Arizona, so it's the time of year when I brag to everyone about how beautiful it is out here. And to echoing what Steve said, we work really, really hard to prepare for these webinars. I was talking to my wife and I said, you know, I taught school for a long time at universities, and I used to teach a class meant for 3 hours. It was a graduate class meant for 3 hours, one night a week, and I bet I work as hard pulling things together and sourcing all of the slides and everything that I do for these webinars compared to maybe 3 graduate level classes. We spend a lot of time getting this stuff right. It's really important because we want to help everyone out there do their jobs better. When we all look good together, it helps all the boats rise together. So let's dive right in. I'm going to provide some things I've really thought a lot about, and hopefully they'll help you too. So let me just, here we go. All right, I'm going to start with a story. All right, so several years ago, I was a faculty member on a doctoral granting institution in Utah. About every 3 or 4 months, I would fly in, teach for a day or two, and then boom, I'd go home. It was an awesome gig. I will tell you the students were incredible. They were amazing. The campus was really beautiful, right next to the foot of the Rocky Mountains. So support staff was incredibly, very, very helpful. On one visit, I stopped by the administration office to take care of some business. Remember, the support staff helped me. When she was concluded with her business, she leaned over the counter and then she whispered in a hushed tone, she said, "If you ever need chocolate," boom, this is where the stash is kept. Then she opened a drawer, and I was blown away by the bounty of chocolate that was in that drawer. I thanked her, and I will admit, because I am in touch with my chocolate side, I hit the drawer a time or two. Then I went to teach my class, and as I was teaching, I heard myself say, make the healthy choice the easiest. And I realized that in this particular work environment, the less healthy choice had just been made the easiest by the chocolate drawer. Now I was deeply conflicted because, as I mentioned, I am really, really in touch with my chocolate side. But I realized I needed to say something. So here's what I did. I just want to tell you, first of all, when I tell you what I did, you cannot accuse me of being a chocolate Gestapo because I really, really like chocolate. But I thought it would be a good idea if I drank my own medicine. So the following day, this secretary and I had a quiet conversation at lunchtime. I made sure to find her. I sat down with her. I profusely thanked her for her warm hospitality. And then I explained what wellness people do. What do we do every day? And how important the role of environmental support really is in the overall wellness effort. And then what happened was we talked about the calorie content of the chocolate in that drawer and the resulting long-term impact on weight and health. We talked about how little decisions every day make a difference. And if we all pulled together to make the healthy choice the easiest, wouldn't that be awesome? I told her, I am sorry, but I'm no longer going to be hitting the chocolate drawer, and I left it at that. Now, I've been told that I'm sometimes short on tact, and I'm sorry for that, but I thought I did this conversation really the best I possibly could. About 3 or 4 months later, I came back, I returned, I found the same but much healthier secretary. She pulled me aside and she said, I want you to see my candy drawer. She opened it up and boom, there was no more candy. She thanked me very sincerely for teaching her about wellness and about environmental support and remarked how easy it had been to make the change. I searched for a better word, she testified that she could feel the difference in her own health. And I have to say, it felt pretty darn awesome. This is exactly what we're talking about today. Making environment and policy changes at the workplace, making the healthy choice the easiest choice. So the agenda has been before you there. So what I wanted to do in this webinar, among other things, is talk about why workplace and policy make a difference. Talk about the role of senior leadership in that, in forming healthy environments and policy. Talk about some evidence-based environment policy strategies, introduce you to a tool that will help you connect with, and a website, by the way, that will help you connect with some of those evidence-based strategies. And then to provide some case studies kind of woven in amidst everything. So let's go ahead and get started. Why environmental and policy? Well, you've all seen this before. The medical cost trend it's just headed the wrong way, and it's projected to get worse before it gets actually just projected to get worse. It's going to continue in a costly direction. Remember, when you look at that and you go, oh my goodness, the cost of lost productivity is 2 to 3 times greater than medical costs. So it's even larger. So why is this important? Because healthy employees cost less. And that's why we do wellness in the first place. So you've seen this. This is the primary value proposition of WellSteps. The premise is simple. Employee health behaviors drive the majority of cost and other outcomes. Steve and I didn't just make this up at WellStep. There's really a mountain of evidence that supports this relationship. And this raises a really, really good question. If behavior change is so important, why are we talking today about workplace environment and policy? Well, here's why. To a great extent, good health, we know, exists in healthy cultures, but the opposite is also true. Unhealthy cultures tend to breed poor employee health. We know that the best workplace wellness programs include more emphasis on environment and policy. It's proven fact. And we could talk about but C. Everett Koop Awards applicants are a great testament to that. We know that including environment and policy into program design can lower employee health risk by up to 5% a year. So the fact that the best programs include these strategies is probably the reason why they're more effective, because they're including these strategies, therefore they're lowering risk. You should know that the risk reduction alone that we see in the best programs is 2.5 times greater than standard programs, programs that fail to include substantial environment and policy measures. So that's the reason we're talking about this. We want to help the employees. We want to help employees change behavior. We've got to modify the work site. We've got to modify the workplace. So to impact outcomes, how to impact the ultimate outcome, if you add policy and environmental change to this model, then you get boom, boom, boom. You get behavior change on steroids. Wham. And that, of course, filters down. So consider what having a greater change in healthy behaviors will do to the health risks and chronic disease and ultimately cost and the other outcomes. I can't overstate the importance of understanding this relationship. Reducing cost is highly, highly valued in business today and probably will be in the future. Despite the fact that a few critics out there are trying to lead the wellness discussion of ROI, if you're on our LinkedIn group, Wellness is a Business Strategy, maybe you've seen a few of those posts. We think ding dong, ROI is dead. I will tell you this, customers will always want to feel like they're getting a good deal when they invest in anything. I mean, when you go Christmas shopping or holiday shopping, whatever shopping you're doing, gift exchanges, don't you always want to get the best deal? Everybody does. I think it's wired into our DNA. How do I know this about wellness for sure? Well, because I have this conversation, if not with real customers, with our sales team, with real brokers in the real world all the time. So to Steve, all the time. So I promise you can be sure that when we talk about this relationship, we're not spewing philosophical mumbo jumbo from an ivory tower. ROI, folks, it's always going to matter. Let me put it this way. If you're on the fence about ROI because you heard an academic enthusiastically celebrate its death or demise, just ask yourself this question. Do the stakeholders with whom I work care about getting a good deal or not? Think about that. At any rate, because we know that the break-even typically occurs when employee risk is reduced by 0.1 to 0.2%. Remember, I said earlier that if we include environment and policy into the program plan, we're likely to reduce risk by 5% more. All we need to break even is 0.1 to 0.2% per year. So there's a massive financial argument to be made when we talk about environment and policy. That said, here's a case in point. Many of you know about the ROI calculator we developed and make available for free at WellSteps. If you don't, you really should. Just go to wellsteps.com, click on Tools in the upper right-hand corner, and there it is. It's designed to help you project ROI. It's based on an updated body of evidence. We look at every couple of years. We update it. We add new research. We tweak the numbers to make sure it matches the current research. But as we originally built the algorithm for the ROI calculator, we very, very, very carefully reviewed every single study that reported an ROI. And I would say the body of evidence is not huge. It's probably maybe 3 dozen articles. As I mentioned, we routinely updated the calculator with new studies and adjusted the algorithm. Before a review on the impact of workplace culture, which I have made available on our website, you go to the webinars link on our webpage, you can scroll down to the archives, you can find that. And I've also made it a handout in the webinar today, so you can download it directly from your control panel, I believe. So for the review on the impact of workplace culture that Steve and I worked on, we group programs according to program intensity. We talk about this in the paper. And then so low, medium, and high. And then we reported the ROI. It varied accordingly. So it was interesting to see that those strategies in improved health promoting policy and workplace environment, the companies at any rate, they had about, over double the return at those that not. So if you can compare the high on the right end to the low on the left, there was an ROI in those that had a low implementation of or low return. They didn't use environmental policy strategies very effectively. Those that did had a much better return. So again, to get that article, just go to WellSteps, click on the large webinar image in the center of the page and scroll down to the archive where you can get it from the control panel. So let's talk a little bit about the role of senior leadership support. What role does it play in all this? If you think about it, senior leadership can really, really have a tremendous influence on environmental policy, for the good or the bad. I mean, I know all of us can think about really bad environments in which we work because of the leadership was bad? I certainly can. It should be very clear when we think about it that the more effective programs, those are the ones that have better returns. They tend to exist in organizations that have supportive leadership. And I'll provide some case studies to support that here in a bit. I can think of several examples where this is true. In fact, I can't think of one good example where a truly healthy environment exists in the absence of supportive leadership. Now, here's some data to support this notion. All right, so a few years back, we did a project with Kaiser Permanente, Dr. Aldana and myself, where we delivered the WellStep small business solution to dozens of companies. Now, we've talked about this before. Here's one of the many, many things that we've learned. After the program was over, the organizations were rated on supportive leadership into one of three groups shown on the y-axis here: weak, moderate, strong leadership support. And the numbers on the x-axis down here simply represent percentage. So participation was far greater in the organizations that had strong leadership percentage, or strong leadership. You can see the difference here. And of those that participated in the programs, a much greater number reported changing at least one behavior if they had strong versus weak leadership support. In fact, the impact of strong leadership in this particular effort was worth 25 percentage points in participation and about 30 percentage points in behavior change. So, and you maybe somebody's typing the question in right now, well, how do we get strong leadership support? We've talked about that many times before in our webinars. We probably will talk about it again, as Steve mentioned. It's super important. And if you've got questions about how to get leadership support, we can share with you some of the ideas that we use at WellSteps to encourage leaders to participate. What we found, though, is a strong leader is just a strong leader. We can help leaders improve and get better. I know that's not what you want to hear, but anyway, that's where we are. So the second piece is even more impressive. So HERO stands for the Health Enhancement Research Organization. Those of you who haven't heard of it, it's a collaboration of groups that have access to large number of employees, or people that are willing to put up money to help fund research, or people with skill to analyze the data. And those three groups have come together, and they all share common research goals. So that's HERO, Health Enhancement Research Organization. So the information I'm going to share with you comes from a much larger data set. From about 2006 to 2011, 455 companies voluntarily completed the HERO scorecard. And the goal is to help figure out what successful programs do. About 455 representative companies. These data were partially analyzed and reported in the Coulter paper that I've mentioned earlier, and again, it's shared with you. The data were used to look at the relationship between supportive leadership and both employee risk and cost. So let me show you how the results look, but first let me just provide a little bit, pretend like I'm an academic for just a minute. Okay, so here's what we got going on here. So up the x-axis, you have degree of leadership support, and it goes from marginally, somewhat, up to very supportive. And then across the x-axis, you have improvement in employee health cost, or excuse me, health risk or cost. I'm going to show you two different outcomes here in a minute. And it ranged from none, slight, to substantial. So what we're hoping to see here is, you're really comparing the corners. In stats, we compare the information across the columns, and we do that using a chi-square test, and I know Steve talked about that in the last webinar. These aren't kind of normally distributed data, so we look at the corners. So up here in the upper left, we have a very supportive environment, but no improvement, and we're going to compare that to a very supportive environment with big improvement. And this is kind of what we'd expect if our theory is right. There would be a big difference here. And we're also going to look at the bottom row, where we have not supportive environments, but big improvement, which would go counter to what we suspect. And we're going to compare that to those who were in not supportive environments and they had no improvement, which is kind of what we would expect. All right, so you kind of with me? So the real interest here is in these two comparisons. So what happened? Great question. So here's what we learned. When we compare those two corners, what we find is those who had a high degree of leadership support had a 4x2 greater likelihood of changing employee health risk. So companies with very supportive leadership were over 4 times more likely to report substantial improvement in employee health risk. Just to repeat. So by the same token, those with marginally supportive leadership, there on the bottom, were over 4 times more likely to report no improvement in employee risk or health risk. Now this is exactly what we would expect. This is for health risk. When we looked at medical costs, we saw basically the same thing. Those companies with very supportive leaderships, 2.5 times more likely to report substantial reduction in medical cost. Companies with minimally supportive leadership were 4.1, again, the same number, it's not a typo, 4.1 times more likely to report no reduction in medical costs. So bada boom. Maybe you're sitting there thinking right now, okay, Dr. Adams, we get it. I want me some of that, but how do I get it? Well, what do I do? Where do I start? Now remember, the goal of all this is to help employees change behavior, which is more likely to occur when the environment and policy support it. Okay, so I recently did a seminar in Oregon, and in the seminar we talked about ways to help employees change behavior, and we talked about the full gamut. I shared with them these models of behavior change. This is the health belief model, the granddaddy of them all. Looks complicated, right? Those of you who've had public health go, oh, I recognize that. I can't really remember it or how it works, but I remember that. What about this one? Holy cow, oh brother, what's going on here? I am embarrassed for all my fellow former academicians who have produced work like this, and I will cop a plea and say I probably have. But the great news in all of this is, and I will say in Oregon there was great relief when we all discovered together that behavior change is not as complicated as scientists make it out to be. I provided this paper for you. We've shared this a number of times. This is an interview by WellCo with Dr. Michael O'Donnell, who shares some of his learnings over almost 40 years about how to help people change behaviors. The model that I'm going to share it was created by Dr. O'Donnell. It's called the AMSO model, and it identifies 4 main factors that should be included as we design our wellness programs. We do these 4 things, we don't need to worry about the health belief model or that other abomination. So where do I start? I start with the AMSO model. The AMSO model is a basis for everything we do at WellSteps. You're looking at the percentages there, and you're maybe wondering what those are. The percentages represent the estimated relative contribution of each. So awareness is passing out flyers, those kind of things that we typically do in wellness programs. It only is responsible on an estimated basis for about 5% of change. It means we got to do a better job at some of the other levels. The interesting thing is, you look at opportunities, which I'll explain in a second, it's the biggest. It's the biggest contributor to an effective program, and it's most likely to get left out. So the model was developed out of a benchmarking study where they looked at the 100 best workplace wellness programs in the United States. And there was detailed data provided on about a third of those, 35 of them actually. It was refined by about 15 years of C. Everett Koop applications. And the best part is that it's really simple. Opportunities is code talk for environment and policy. I'm going to share with you some of those, as well as support of others. So that's how you do it. If you're not really sure where to start, identify the environment and policies that can be easily made and make those. Create a place where the healthiest choice is the easiest, and people will make the easiest choice. If there's no chocolate to eat, people won't eat it. It's that simple. So in the Oregon seminar, which I mentioned earlier, everybody seemed to have a pretty good feel for the first 3 levels: awareness, motivation, skills, and tools. But I was really, really impressed by some of the really clever ideas around how to change environment policy. And because I was teaching the seminar, I couldn't remember all of the suggestions that people have. I called Inga and Jake up there in Oregon, and they both reminded me of a district that had written a 20-minute wellness time policy into the workday. Those of you who ever worked in public education know how massively huge that is, because time is so limited. This district took it to the policy level. They said, you got 20 minutes and here's what we're going to do together, and I'm pretty impressed. So really what it all comes down to with respect to changing environment and policy, bottom line is we need a way to identify several possibilities so we can choose the most important and changeable. I'll say that again. We need to identify strategies, a strategy that is most important. In other words, it will make the biggest impact in your particular workplace, and the most changeable. That means it has the biggest chance of making a splash, of succeeding. So I'm going to share with you some evidence-based strategies. I'm going to share with you a tool that will help you pick and choose from a number of strategies. And then I'm going to share with you some of my personal favorites from my decades of experience. And this is my admission that I've been around for a while. I'm an old dog. So here is where you can get some evidence-based strategies. Some of you have never heard of the Community Guide to Preventive Services. Some of you are going, okay, I know all about the Preventive Guide. So I apologize in advance to those of you who've already heard of it. There are people on the webinar today, I promise, who haven't. It's a free resource to help wellness professionals choose programs and policies that improve health and prevent disease. And it's based on systematic scientific reviews that are used to basically answer 3 or 4 main questions. So it's questions like, which programs and policies work the best, which are right for me, for my situation, what's the cost value of applying this strategy, what's the ROI, et cetera, and so on. So that's the community guide. So what I did is I reviewed all of the strategies listed at the community guide, and I put all of the evidence-based strategies for that would help you change environment or policy in a workplace, and I put them all on one page. So you can go to wellsteps.com/strategies, and all of them are listed there for you. So my goodness, I can't believe I forgot to do this, but I want to go there. Forgot to preload this page. Just want to go there and mention just a couple of them. So here's the page. You'll notice when you click on any links, it'll take you to the community guide. Here's an environmental policy approach to increasing physical activity, creation of enhanced access. You'll notice it says in here, such changes include creating walking trails. I have some great stories about that in a second. Building exercise facilities or providing access to nearby facilities. So scroll down and you get, if you're really into the data, you can see that this is recommended, and you get the findings if you want to read more about that, and here are the results from the systematic review summarized in real person, easy to understand language. You can come across sounding like an expert. So it is recommended that we do things to make the healthy choice the easiest choice in that particular policy. Let me share you this one other one. Workplace obesity programs. There's a lot of conflicting evidence out there on obesity programs, but worksite nutrition and physical activity programs are designed to improve behaviors and health. These programs can include one or more approaches to support behavioral change, including blah, 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 policy and environmental strategies. If you scroll down here, it says policy and environment aims to make healthy choices easier. Does that sound familiar? Target the entire workforce by changing physical or organizational structures, such as improving access to healthy food, cafeteria options, vending options. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Providing more opportunities to be physically active, and so forth. So what I've learned as I've gone around the country and talked to different people is that everybody's work site is laid out a little bit differently, and so it's sort of hard to say, well, to issue a one-size-fits-all dictum. You really have to kind of assess, evaluate, and figure out the way to apply the chosen strategy into your place of work. And I included some other things on here, like some protective behaviors for flu shots, vaccinations, blood pressure screenings. I included this one down here because I thought it was interesting. Assessment of risk factors combined with that doesn't really have anything to do with policy, but I couldn't let it go, so I put it down here as a bonus. Okay, so this is where you can find evidence-based strategies. Dr. Adams, what's an easy way that I can find this information. I don't have time to go through all of those strategies. Well, great news. If you go to wellsteps.com, click on Tools in the upper right-hand corner, you'll be taken to a page, and you can choose from a number of free tools, one of which is called the Checklist to Change. And you can take it. It takes like 5 minutes. It's free. We recently updated the look and improved the way it works. Take the Checklist to Change. You'll walk away, I promise, with some simple ideas that are all based on the evidence I just showed you, how to apply one strategy that you would most likely see implemented at your place of work. A lot of people, they get all fired up and they say, well, my gosh, there's like 8 things we need to change and we need to do it all this year. To those people, I say slow down. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You got to pick the one thing that you can do really well, do it, fully implement it this year, and then move on next year to something else. So simpler is better. Do one thing really, really well, move on after you're successful. Again, this is called the Checklist to Change. Based on the evidence that we provided you, what we've done is we've tried to summarize the evidence, so you get an email, you'll get, you can click on a full list of the strategies, which we just put up this morning. Anyway, so that's how you access some evidence-based strategies. You can go to that web page and read all the information you want, or you can take the Checklist to Change, and we've done the work to make it as simple as possible. That said, I want to share with you some of my favorite strategies that people have tried, I think have been great. So I really like the strategies where employers reveal their heart and they try to make life better for their employees. Those are my favorite. So walking trail magic, that's 4 or 5 different things. I'm just going to share with you some ideas that people have done about walking trails. So we had one customer that we talked to about walking trails, and it was a manufacturing group up in north central part of the United States. So it's cold in the winter up there. What they did is they got Google Earth. This number of years ago, they got Google Earth. They figured out a walking trail around their plant, and then they went out and they put up little simple signs to let people know what the distances were. And what do you know? They had people walking on breaks around the plant because it had now been marked and measured. So that's really, really easy to do. I heard of one organization. They spent a lot of money to build a walking trail around their place of work, and they could do it because they were in Austin, Texas, and they had the surrounding area was beautiful. And what they did is that they wanted not only to build the trail, but they wanted people to experience it. And they knew that people would be less likely to go out on the trail by themselves. And so what they did is they created a big event. It's called a poker walk. Some of you probably heard of this, and for those of you that haven't, I'll explain it really quick. All they did is set up 5 tables around the perimeter of the trail, sent people on the trail in small groups. They stopped at every table, got a little bit of information, and picked up a playing card. Then they went to the next table, got another playing card. When they finished, they got back, and I can't remember how the process went, but I think you just got 5 hands, and that was your hand, and you put them up on a board, and the person that had the winning hand from the poker walk, they won some sort of financial incentive. But really, that wasn't the goal. The goal was to build a beautiful walking trail and help everybody go together and figure out what it was, and it was wildly popular. And then the trail got used. One organization, they had a great walking trail that had featured a bunch of native plants, and so they hired a botanist to come in a couple of times, and the botanist led walks on the trail and pointed out some of the native plants and some of their functions and some of the history. And people were, it was a scientific group, and they were fascinated by the information. Similarly, another group hired a wildlife expert, talked about some of the wildlife in the area. So all kinds of things that could be done with walking trails, and that's one of the strategies that is recommended. All right, healthy food to go. So you've heard about companies who have gone to healthy vending and healthy dining. You saw those strategies recommended in the information I shared with you. If you haven't heard about those, the key to making these strategies work is to make the healthy food cheaper. make the healthy food cheaper, even if it has to be subsidized a little bit, or even if you have to raise the price of the unhealthy food. So comparatively speaking, more people will choose the healthy food. That's just human. Everybody likes a good deal. We talked about that earlier, right? So it's a great way to drive healthier eating. But this next strategy I'm going to share with you, it takes the sugar-free cake. It's the best one I've ever heard. I wish I could tell you the long-term outcomes. I can't. A few years back, we worked with a call center. They had about 1,200 employees in Arizona. Not all the employees were call center employees, but the majority were. So most of the employees who worked the phones, from looking around, were women, and we learned later that many of the women were single mothers. My sister is a single mother of 7 kids. We're all grown now, thank heavens, but I have a soft spot in my heart for the challenges of single parenting. And if you are or ever have been a single parent, you know that just preparing meals, period, is stressful. You got hungry kids, they want food, they want it quick, and you're just scrambling to get something into their mouths. The challenge is even bigger when you try to figure out how to feed your kids healthy food. So here's what this group did. They realized the unique demographic of their situation. And this is before there were services widely available like there are now. They made arrangements so that employees on 2 days a week could email an order for a healthy meal. And they couldn't choose. They couldn't choose what they wanted. It was, here's what we're having on Tuesday, here's what we're having on Thursday, and it changed. But they could say, yeah, sign me up. I want that meal. And what the employees did on their way out the door for the day, they picked up a meal for about the cost of the ingredients. It was just slightly more than the cost of ingredients. If you factor in the time it takes to go to the store, wheel your cart back, find the ingredients, compare all the healthiness of the ingredients, put them in your cart, go to the checkout, wait in line, get them, fight 2 screaming kids the whole time. This is a really, really good deal. About the cost of the ingredients, they were able to do this. So employees picked up the health meal on the way out the door, on the way to where their car was parked. And since most of the workers were headed right to work, from work to daycare or to pick up kids from an after-school program, already having the food and a recipe was huge. It left out the grocery store step. It gives new meaning to the phrase, we care about you and your family. We want to help you live healthier. So I know that it took a lot of work and organization to get this set up. I know it cost the organization a little bit of money, but it was subsidized by what the employees paid. It's the best idea I've ever heard to help people eat healthier. And not only that, helping dependents eat healthier. It's a great idea. Healthy food to go. The last one is from Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. You maybe have heard this example before, but it was an organization that the employees had access to a fitness facility, and they instituted a flex time policy. Most flex time policies are set up so you can come to work a little bit early, or you can you take a little longer at lunch, or you can, there's a variety of different ways, but it really only works with the beginning, the end, and the middle of the day. What these guys did is they said, okay, anytime you want to go work out, you can go work out anytime you want. You just can't miss work meetings. You can go work out anytime you want. You go over to the facility, you check in, you check out, you get this long on work time, and bada boom, bada bing. These guys had 4 years of flat cost trend. This was a time when cost trends were 9, 10, 11% for the rest of the country. In Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, they had 4 years of flat trends, and to a great extent, this is attributed to this policy, which is, I think, indicative of a larger, more supportive culture. So those are some of my favorite strategies. Want to share with you a couple of case studies, and then hopefully we'll have some time for some of you might have some great experiences that you'd like to share that where you've been able to implement some healthy environment policy strategies. So the first is, and I provided this interview for you on our WellSteps website. This is a WellCoa interview. This is an interview with Ted Townsend, who was the CEO for a number of years of Townsend Industries in Des Moines, Iowa. He basically, Mr. Townsend, led a cultural transformation at his company. And it goes down to several different levels, but On the health and wellness and fitness side, he built a few racquetball courts. This is back in the 70s. Employees love the gesture. But, you know, Mr. Townsend, when we play racquetball, we get sweaty, so bada boom, bada bing, locker rooms were built. Not every company could do this, by the way, but this guy really cared. Toiletries were provided, and workout clothes, and a 30,000 square foot fitness facility, had bowling alleys, skating rink, a couple of basketball courts. Here's the part that's going to blow you away. All for 170 employees. Yes, they were profitable enough to support that. No, they wouldn't have done that had they not been able to afford it, but they did it. We had 170 employees. The fitness center, it gets used by over 80% of the employees. Now, why not all? I don't know. Some of them are maybe just dug in, but 80% of the people have used the facility. You can use the bowling alley for birthday parties, et cetera, so on. There's also an annual budget. This doesn't have anything to do, well, it does have something to do with wellness. An annual budget per employee to send flowers to anyone you want. So as an employee, I can see Karen over in accounting who's really sad. I can send her flowers anonymously. I submit it, and I get reimbursed for doing that. There are environmental and policy supports everywhere you turn, like no questions asked, designated driver policy. You're out on the weekend, you have a little too much to drink, call a cab, you keep the receipt, you turn it in, no questions asked, and company pays to get you home safely. High quality child seats for automobiles with training on how to install them. Sounds funny? A lot of car seats are incorrectly installed, which leads to problems. Company pays for the car seats. I could go on and on and on. It's a really interesting interview to read. Turnover in his tenure of over a decade, 3 people. 3 people left. All were back in less than 6 weeks because the culture, leadership set the tone, and the culture was amazingly supportive. And there you go. There's the message. So this interview with Ted Townsend, again, has been posted in the webinar materials that you can access from going to wellsteps.com, click on the webinars link right in the center on the right, and then go down to archives, and you can find it there. So here's case study number 2. Case study number 2, we looked at some data from, I'm just going to say it was an organization that was an insurance financial advising company. And this organization, we picked them because they had really, really high strong leadership, and they had some great environmental and policy supports in place. There was no smoking policy, a number of really other impressive things that they did. They used a full WellStep marketing communication plan. They had a highly engaged coordinator and wellness committee. There was a lot of participation, a lot of ideas, a lot of discussion. Their enrollment was about three-fourths of the employees enrolled. Campaign completion, about 60% completed campaigns. And we have a program that's issued on a monthly basis. We call it rewards. It allows you to build a custom set of activities that you want employees to do, and then we push out messages both by text, app, and by email, reminding people to do those activities. They check them off. There's ways to verify, et cetera, and so on. But you earn a certain number of points, you can redeem those points for a prize. And those who reached a prize level, 58%, and that's much, much higher than happens in most of our other studies. So a lot of things going on here. I think probably the biggest was the strong leadership and environmental policy support. They had everything going right. So compare that to a Western Hospital Group, and a lot of this information may have been changed to protect the innocent. A lot of things in this organization did not go right. The biggest barriers, I think, are listed on the first line. The really poor leadership and environmental policy support. Support was pretty much non-existent. Beyond that, they opted out of marketing and communication plan. They said, "Oh, we'll do it on our own." Our account manager, WellSteps Guide, they gave us limited access to committee meetings, so we never knew what was going on. You can see the results there, and not good. Poor enrollment, poor completion, not many people reach rewards level, and so when we compare the two, it's pretty clear. And I'm gonna say it's not just environmental support, but I think that was the biggest contributor, 224 to 421% greater, because the support was there. So what should you do with all this information? First of all, what's the summary? A healthy environment leads to healthy workers. Leadership is the key to environment and policy. To change environment policy, I think do one strategy at a time. When you got it down, go on to the next strategy. You said, Dr. Adams, you would talk about leadership, how to get leadership support. Here's some of the things that we do. We recognize the importance of leadership support. We recognize that not all leaders are hardwired into this wellness way of thinking. And so we have developed an infographic that it talks about leadership support. We've printed that out. We send a book, that infographic, some postcards that the leader can write on to recognize accomplishments, wellness accomplishments by employees. We provide as many of those postcards as are requested, and a few other things, and we send those in a leadership support kit to a key person who can physically hand that box to the leader and say, this is from WellSteps. We really appreciate your support, and here's how some of these items work. That's the way that we encourage leadership support. So you may be wondering, okay, Dr. Adams, what do we do next? I'm going to recommend again that you go back to the checklist to change, take the time to go through it, see if there's not an evidence-based strategy in there that wouldn't help you. Get the PDF, get the ideas, go back with a wellness committee. If you don't have one, maybe that could be the one that you work on first, is putting together a wellness committee. You're looking for Tiggers, not Eeyores, on that committee, and then identify the things that you can do during the coming year, and bada boom, bada bing, you'll be in business, one simple strategy at a time. Now, we've got about 12 minutes. I wanted to save a little bit of time. I want to tell you thank you for attending the webinar today. And I'm hoping that we have some questions, or that we maybe have some suggestions of things that people have done at their workplace that, Steve, you can summarize.
Troy,
So
Troy, we got some good questions here, and people are looking for resources. I need you to show your screen on a couple of cases. The culture of paper that you and I published in JOEM, the PDF.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go to that real quickly?
Sure.
That paper is on the webinars link at wellsteps.com. Troy's going there right now. And this is where all the resources where Dr. Adams has mentioned, but it's that top one, Culture Change Review. Troy, if you'll just show that one on that link. And then as this PDF opens, some of you are looking for specific kinds of things. We listed a whole variety of actual items. Go down to page 4, Troy. And on this paper we published, on page 4, we create a list of things that you can do within different areas right there. So for example, physical activity strategies. You can put together a walking meeting. You can encourage stair climbing. You can build breaks into meetings. So there are nutrition strategies, physical activity strategies, tobacco control strategies, and some others. And this is not a comprehensive list, but this is a list of things that we have gathered from work sites across the country. So this is a great way to start. Now with that, Troy, would you tell people how it happens within a work site that the wellness committee and the guide gets together and they pick one and do it? And will you just walk us through that culture change piece as it happens in real companies?
Sure. So one of the things that we have embedded in our roadmap, in our electronic account management tool, is we ask coordinators, and I'll say all coordinators don't do it, but they all should. We ask them to go to this page. We have this linked off a coordinator page, and we say, take the checklist to change. This is why we designed it. You put in your first name, you put in an email, that's really all you do. And then you can see some of the strategies that Steve is mentioning here. Does your work site have stairs? Well, no, we don't. Well, if you say yes, you do, then we ask, does your work site do anything to encourage stair use? That's one of the strategies. You can go to this and answer no to every single question if you want to get a list of all the strategies. Or you can complete it like you should. You'll get to the end and it will ask you which one thing do you want to focus on this year, and it will send you a PDF that has some ideas for that. But also on the final page of the checklist to change, there's a list of all just simple kind of summed up strategies, explanations of how to implement each of the strategies that Steve, we just showed you in the culture paper. They're all kind of recommended there in one 2-page PDF. You get simple recommendations. So we would go through this. The guide would talk about this. We would have them complete it. We would together discuss which one strategy we want to focus on, and then we provided some resources that our WellSteps guides can provide if there are further questions. And occasionally there are times when I have been called in, or Steve has been called in to talk to coordinators about some of these things when the discussions get really academic. People involved want to know. So that's kind of how the process works. If I'm telling you, it's a wellness program is only as good as the environmental support that happens. It is like the soil; it's everything.
So the committee is asked, and how many things do they take on a year?
Well, one a year. The recommendation is one a year.
So we're going to make one of these changes a year. We have had some groups who have talked about doing something once every 6 months to implement something new, but it's a baby steps approach to slowly creating a different environment using this and the Wellness Committee and the WellSteps Guide to walk through each of these. There is a question about tobacco, Troy. We haven't said much about that. But one question that Jeff wants to know is, what's the best method for implementing a tobacco-free policy at the work site? He says he's worked with companies, they've done policies, but they just go to the city sidewalks to smoke. I mean, how do we solve this problem?
Well, I've talked many times about there's a community college system in my area. They have about 9 campuses, and they instituted a campus-wide. That means all 9 campuses have a tobacco policy, and they took 5 years to fully implement the policy. That's not what people really want to hear, but the good thing that they did, a really, really good thing that they did, is they went around and they, to be short, they talked to many, many constituent groups. They helped people understand that we're implementing a policy because it's going to be healthier for everybody. And it's going to be healthier for students, it's going to be healthier for your secretary, it's going to be healthier for everybody. And they formed a tobacco policy, and one of the things is that there was a place to smoke for people who wanted to smoke. It was designated. It was about 300 yards away from the nearest entrance. It was I drive my bike by this campus, and there's this little veranda, a patio table with an umbrella in the middle of a dirt field. That's the designated smoking table. But I think that the best way to institute a tobacco policy is to not ramrod it, is to take time to talk, express the value. We want to help people be healthy over and over again, and then there you go. And we have some resources and tools, materials that we can provide too that will help with tobacco policy.
On the WellSteps/strategies page that you had created, you refer to the community guide for preventive services. And one of those has the sample policies and recommendations that has come from that group. And there's a whole bunch of ideas in there as well. We also know a lot of people that try to tie this into benefits, some kind of incentive or disincentive for tobacco use. So there's a ways to put some sticks and some carrots tied into that. But there's some good resources on that one as well. Will you show the group where the leadership infographic is located, Troy? You've talked about leadership. You talked about what it was. Would you just page over to WellSteps again and show them where they can find that infographic? We have some people wanting to find that.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. Just go to wellsteps.com/infographics.
Or they can go to the tools link.
You can go to the tools link. It's listed there. The tools link is what I showed you earlier. That's where you find the checklist to change. But once you're on wellsteps.com infographics, you can find here's one here about leadership support. 6 things leaders can do to build support for wellness programs.
Okay. And there's a PDF there. They can share it with somebody, whatever they want to do.
Right.
Hey, that looks awesome because I created it myself, Troy. Thank you very much. Just kidding.
They're good looking.
we have some graphics people who help us put those together. Troy, we don't have any other questions at this point. This was a tour de force of all things culture and environment. Next month, we've got Dr. Dee Eddington. He's got a new book, Shared Values, Shared Results for a Healthy Work Site. He's going to be with us on January the 29th. We're going to do an interview with Dee at this time and talk about really important ways that leadership, it plays into this whole business of work sites being healthy, population health management. What does a positive organization look like, and how do they really make this work? Dee's new book, which is available now, Shared Values, Shared Results, and that'll be a full interview for an hour with Dee, and we'll take questions. We'll have Dee on board, and we can take any questions we want about that. Troy, again, fabulous content. Thank you very much to everybody for joining us, and we'll see you in January.